welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphians Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is your host, Drew Hill, joined as always by Chris Herrington. We are in the middle of summer. There's not a ton of NBA news going on. We have a couple of news nuggets to get to before we get on with the podcast. We do have a fun idea today that we're going to try to tackle between Chris and I. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Chris, let's start with the fact that we have a little bit of Grizzlies news. There was a buyout agreed to between the Grizzlies and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He gave back $3.9 million. And a Grizzly of one season is now headed to play for the Philadelphia 76ers. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's something I think we had talked about or alluded to a few weeks ago. It seemed like it was going to happen pretty early in the process, and then when it didn't, I think we can connect the dots on the context clues. And while I can't say it exactly, I think we can say that this was tied to the LeBron thing, and that when the LeBron thing strung out longer, the KCP thing strung out longer, it seems like he was going to go to wherever LeBron went, and needed to know what that destination was and what kind of contract was going to arrive there before he could finish a buyout agreement with the Grizzlies. So that finally happened. The Grizzlies saved $3.9 million. The rest is dead money on the books, but I think we sort of knew that was going to happen, and it helps them, shrink down the roster a little bit.
Yeah, a later podcast we can talk about the LeBron stuff, but we have a lot to get to on this podcast, so let's move on from that. The other bit of news, and I think this has popped up because like one of those aggregation accounts is.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring this up. So I did a mailbag this week, first of what will be 3 Midsummer Grizzlies mailbags, and I ended the one this week with a couple questions, not explicitly about the lease, but kind of about the lease. And one of those was about the idea of games in Nashville, which we have talked about on this pod before. I've written about a little bit before, in response to a couple of stakeholders, so to speak, sort of suggesting that, which was the mayor of Nashville, Freddie O'Connell, and the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, who both alluded to that. And what I draw from that, have continued to draw from that, is that they are alluding to what have been internal discussions about the prospect of some Grizzlies games in Nashville. What I didn't know when I answered the question in the mailbag is that there had been a quote unquote report, which you just referenced. And I don't know whether the person who sent me the question was responding to that or not. I have no idea. He didn't mention it, but I wasn't aware there had been a quote unquote report from this Evan Sidery guy, who frankly I have either muted or blocked. Can't remember which on social media. Just flat out saying there will be Grizzlies games in Nashville this coming season, 2026, 2027. When I have written and talked about that, I have never said that there will be games in Nashville next season. I don't know that that's true at all. I do think that the prospect of games in Nashville has been discussed. I do think it is something that is likely to happen at some point in the follow through of a new lease extension for the Grizzlies in Memphis that will have a lot of state money in it. I do think that some games in Nashville will happen and will flow out of the lease. But I don't know that that's going to happen next season. And the fact that we are only 3 or 4 weeks away from a schedule release and there hasn't been anything really definitive about that, I sort of suspect maybe that's further down the line.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the fact that the timing on this would seem awfully late suggests maybe later on.
I do think that's a real thing, but it's not necessarily a real thing for the coming season.
Right. Yes, I would agree. Evan seems to follow the news very closely. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
Right. He seems to follow the news that comes out very closely. Okay. That should wrap up the little housekeeping segment here. We did have an idea. You came up with it, Chris, to do a draft of the 23 players that are currently on the Grizzlies roster as the team barrels towards training camp. Why don't you just set this up here, and then also we're going to flip a coin to see who's going to go first.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, but a couple notes. When I first thought about this, they were at 24. It's been a funny thing this summer where you're only supposed to carry 21 players during the summer. You can only carry 18 in training camp. And the Grizzlies have had relationships with up to 24. It's 23 now after the KCP buyout. So we're not going to draft 23. I think we're going to cut it at 20 two 10-man rotations. But I thought it'd be funny to sort of just, or way to look through the roster and to draft literally two separate teams. And in fact, to make it a more actionable thing, in case Thomas Isolo is listening, I'm going to make a proposal now that these two 10-man rosters that we draft respectively actually play each other in like the open practice scrimmage. Let's make it a scrimmage in the open practice. Let's have these be the two 10-man rosters who play each other. And I'm even going to volunteer that you and I would coach the rosters if they want to do that.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds like a great time. Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways that you can think about drafting. We didn't really try to figure that out. Like we didn't.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say we haven't talked about it. I'm going to say we're drafting a team to play basketball this season and to actually play basketball. So I am going to think about like how they function as a lineup, right?
Right. I think that is important, like to have a team that positionally makes sense. But there's things you could be considering years down the line, contracts and that sort of thing. But for the purpose of keeping this as easy as possible, we'll just say for this coming season. All right. I flipped a coin on ChatGPT. You have to tell me heads or tails, and I will tell you what it came up with. So go ahead.
I'm going tails.
The answer is heads. I don't know if you can see that. I don't think we can zoom in on the screen, but the answer is heads. Does this mean I get to pick if I go first or second? I'll go first. I'm going first.
You're going first. We're doing this snake fashion, so you don't have a perpetual advantage.
Okay. This is maybe tougher than it should be to pick number one, I think.
I agree.
But ultimately, I'm going to land on the player that I think is the future of the franchise here in Memphis, that everyone's really excited about after Summer League, and that is Cam Boozer. You just spent your best draft asset since Ja Morant on this guy, right? And he looks great. He looked great in Summer League. I think he's already proven that he's going to be able to impact winning on this team. And to me, I just think you have to go Cam Boozer because not only are you going to be centered around him from a basketball standpoint, I also think that he's going to serve as the face of this thing moving forward. So I will take Cam Boozer with the number one pick.
Puts me in a tough spot. I'm going to take Cedric Coward second. That's an easy one for me. I'm taking Coward second. But then I have a real question at 3 because the most impactful player left, I think we would both agree, is Zach Edey. But that leaves me without a primary initiator of my offense because you have Boozer off the board, and if I'm not taking Ty Jerome, I mean, who's getting me into the offense? Who's running the offense, right? If I'm starting with Coward and Edey. On the other hand, if I don't take Edey, I'm leaving Edey for you, and you have all the power in the front court with Boozer and Edey together. So maybe getting the first pick was the way to go here because I feel like I'm in trouble either way. Given that Edey has the injury question and given that I need to run offense, I'm going to take Ty Jerome here so that, I have an offensive initiator because I think the two best offensive hubs on the team are Cam Boozer. I did it again. Cam Boozer and Ty Jerome. And I can't field a team without one of those guys to run my offense through. So I'm going to take Ty Jerome third.
I was wrong to assume that you were going to leave me Ty Jerome in this situation, just because when we talk about the pillars of the team moving forward, we talk about Zach Edey, we talk about Cedric Coward, we talk about Cam Boozer, but we don't necessarily talk about Ty Jerome. I will say, if you look at the advanced numbers, the best player on the team last year is a debate between two guys. It is a debate between Zach Edey and Ty Jerome, both in very small samples. And, some of the predictive projections, if you go to like NBARAPM.com and some of the more advanced statistics, they all love Ty Jerome. Like in terms of impact, they think he's the best player on the team. And so I was not expecting you to go Ty Jerome at number 4.
Assuming Ty Jerome is on the Grizzlies roster when the season starts, and at this point, I think that's a fairly safe assumption. You never know; stuff still could happen. But assuming that's the case, and he's the starting point guard to open the season, I think he's headed towards a fascinating season. Because to your point, he was gangbusters in a small, bit of playing time last year. He has a player option for the year after next. And so next year's an audition for him. And if he's good, Grizzlies want him to be good. And then but if he is good, they have a decision to make. Or do we want to like sign him longer term, or does he become a more attractive trade piece? Right. I think it's a really interesting season for Ty Jerome coming up.
It will be fascinating to see how he plays. I have high expectations. I've been high on the Ty Jerome signing since they signed him in free agency. I think he's going to have a good season as long as he can stay healthy. So, good pick. I like that pick for you, Chris. Look, I have to go Zach Edey. We're not leaving Zach Edey on the board after pick 4. That's crazy to do.
Pick 4 is the easiest pick of the draft.
So we will take Zach Edey at pick number 4. Let me read you a couple stats real quick from the 11-game sample from Zach Edey. This is courtesy of Cleaning the Glass. I don't have to worry about the fact that I don't have a true point guard so far because I've got playmaker Cam Boozer and I've got Zach Edey, and maybe we're not going to go hyper speed like the Grizzlies want to go with these two guys because Zach Edey offensively was in the 99th percentile in points per play in the half court last year over his 11-game sample. Grizzlies were plus 10.4 points in the half court with Edey on the floor per 100 possessions. And then defensively, probably the best rim protector in the game if you're going to go off of this 11-game sample. Opponents shoot at the rim 13.4% less with Edey on the floor. He was 100th percentile in defensive points per possession allowed at minus 26.1. That's outrageously low. That he won't be that good. 100th percentile in defensive effective field goal percentage for opponents. Opponents had a effective field goal percentage 9.4% lower when Edey was on the court last season, and he was in the 100th percentile in not allowing offensive rebounds to opponents. Offensive rebounds were given up 13.7% less when Edey was on the floor for the Grizzlies last year. So he was just completely dominant, really important to them in the half court, an incredible player defensively. He had some real momentum, looked like he had made real improvements from his rookie season. And so, again, if he's healthy, feel the same way about Edey as I do Ty Jerome. I have really high expectations for what he'll do for the Grizzlies this year. That was an incredible 11 games, so I'm happy to start here with Boozer and with Edey.
Then you got the next pick.
Oh, and now I'm going to continue, and I am going to add Jeremy Grant. I feel like
you're playing big.
This is I'm going to lean big because I have a feeling I'm still going to be able to get the guys I want. I don't know what direction you're going to go, but I'm going to go Jeremy Grant. I just am going to lean on a guy that's a veteran here, and I kind of need that presence. You have Ty Jerome. I'll take the other vet on this team, and I will take Jeremy Grant, somebody who has proven production in the NBA, and so I will just fill out my front court right there.
I thought I was going to get Grant in on my next couple picks. You kind of threw me for a loop there. I don't know. I think I may be at a real disadvantage here on this team, but I have to take at pick number 6 now, my next pick. I have to make sure I get, even though you're not going to take him, I can't risk it. I have to get Isaiah Stewart because I have to have Isaiah Stewart to contend with Boozer and Edey in the scrimmage that we're going to make the Grizzlies do. So I got to take Beef Stew, put him either at the 4 or the 5, not determined yet. Depends on how the rest of my team shakes out. But I'm going to take Beef Stew there. And then it's an interesting question at that point. There's like 4 guys I'm looking at, and it's not crystal clear who I would take. I'm gonna go for you're going big. I'm gonna go a smaller, more high octane, aggressive kind of team. I'm gonna take a guy who I think I might be higher on even than the Grizzlies are. I think he's gonna be healthy now, coming off the 2 toe surgeries. I'm gonna take Scottie Pippen Jr. and put him in a backcourt with Ty Jerome, which was the backcourt the Grizzlies really wanted to play a lot together last season off the bench, and they didn't play together at all, really.
Okay. This is where I feel like I've executed my plan well, okay? Because both of the true point guards that you might expect at the top of the rotation are gone, but
right. Yeah, Boozer.
I do have Boozer, and I also really like Cam Spencer, who's another player who, is a high impact guy, and the numbers suggest he's a better player than even what he has shown so far in his career. I have a really great shooter to operate with the space that's going to be created with Edey and Boozer on the court together. I think he's capable of playing point guard. When you go look at some of the splits last year per Cleaning the Glass, they had him at 24% as a point guard, 49% as a shooting guard, so more of an off-ball guard. But he's got point guard reps both seasons in the NBA. First season, they have him playing point guard 13% of the time and shooting guard 61% of the time. So he's already scaled up to play a little bit more point guard last season. And I feel pretty comfortable with Cam Spencer since I have Zach Edey. So I'm going to take Cam Spencer here. And then this is where I also think it gets a little bit tricky because I'm between two guys that are still in my second tier of players. One of us is going to get one of them, the other is going to get the other. And it's Gigi Jackson and Jalen Wells here that I have a decision to make. And, positionally, I think Jalen Wells definitely makes more sense for my team and based on the guys I already have. But I'm going to buy on Gigi Jackson and just go mega huge and put you in a tough spot here.
You're putting Gigi at scoring guard?
I'm not going to put him at scoring guard. I'm going to wait.
Okay.
I'm going to wait. I don't feel great about my other options, but I'm just going to load up in the front court and be as good as I possibly can in those areas. So give me Gigi, who really improved last season, improved defensively, and I think could be in for another leap this year. So, man, I've really screwed up our draft, and I've forced you into the backcourt, but this is how the draft will play out.
It's fine. Cedric Howard rebounds like a power forward anyway. I'm gonna play small. I'm gonna play Cedric Howard as my power forward. I'm gonna add Jalen Wells, and I'm gonna spread the floor. I'm gonna have Ty Jerome, wheeling and dealing, and we're gonna run you guys off the floor. We're gonna make Zach Edey and Cam Boozer run. So we're gonna do that, and then to add, so that's pick number 10 to complete my starting lineup. And then to add to the quickness, but also to give me some size, which I need for matchup, I'm adding Omax, actually, Omax Prosper, to give me some versatility, some athleticism, guy who can give me some size, but can still run the floor and shoot threes. And I'm taking Omax.
Okay.
That's my next pick.
All right, so you add Omax and Jalen Wells. Back to me. I mean, I have to get another guard. Like, I have to. And I think we saw that Javon Small did show some flashes of potential during Summer League. It hasn't always been the most consistent with him, and he is more of the traditional point guard. But I feel like him and Cam Spencer are both a little bit interchangeable at the 1 and the 2, and Small might be able to play a little bit off the ball as well. So I'm going to have to take Javon Small just because I've loaded way too much on the front court here. And then with this next pick, I'm very tempted to take one of the rookies, and I think Richie Saunders probably makes more sense for my roster. I don't know. Do I have to factor in the fact that he's not ready because he's got an ACL injury, or are we just assuming that these guys are actually playing? That's a very important question here.
Well, theoretically, you can assume what you want, but when they roll these guys out at the open practice with the clipboard and the Pat Riley Armani suits coaching, you're not going to be able to put them on the floor.
Yeah. Okay, then that's fine. I'm going to go with the other rookie. I'm going to take Kareem Lopez. I'll take a bet on some potential here, and I'll just keep loading up with my big physical players on the wing. And so everybody's going to have to be able to move up and defend some faster guys, but I feel like we have a real size advantage here. And I'll just take another rebounder and take Kareem Lopez.
Well, I got to get the other real big out there because while I may start small, I'm going to need to, over the course of the game, have another big. So I'm going to have to take Quentin Post here. Going to play a big role for me off the bench, much like in the real Grizzlies season. He is going to play more than the depth chart might indicate, and that's going to be true for the Grizzlies. It's going to be true for my little scrimmage team here. So I'm taking Quentin Post. with my first pick here of this double. Now I have a hard decision to make. Do I do another big? Do I do a guard? I'm gonna go ahead and really put you in a bind. You know what? I need defense. I'm gonna go with a guy who I'm not even sure is gonna be on the team. I'm gonna take Jemai Mashak as a defender who I want on my team.
All right. That's a good pick. Circles back to me again. I'm loaded up in the front court here. And so I still feel like I have to make moves in the backcourt. He had a rough rookie season, okay? It was a tough rookie season. And I'm very tempted here to take Richie Saunders because, again, I feel like he has some real potential and might be maybe even more NBA ready than a player like Lopez. We'll see. But I'll take Walter Clayton. We'll just I don't know if he'll be on the roster either. I don't think we have answers yet as far as how the backcourt will shake out. But I need to have guards, and I don't know. D'Angelo Russell has been an unproductive NBA player for multiple seasons now. It's just hard for me to buy on that. AJ Johnson, I would rather take a look at him than take a look at D'Angelo Russell. I think we've seen it a lot.
I think in order to draft a guy, we have to be able to pick them out of a lineup. I'm not sure if either of us could do that for AJ Johnson.
So it's just tough. So I'm gonna have to take Clayton there. And then I also, you have both of the other centers, and I'm gonna need another big. And so right now I've got two other options if I'm not taking Richie Saunders, and that's Taylor Hendricks and Carson Cooper. I feel like Taylor Hendricks has shown, more than Carson Cooper at the NBA level, and he did play some good minutes at the end of last season. That summer league was rough, but I'm just gonna pick him and let him play backup big. He's just gonna fill my spot minutes, and I'll be able to scale down a little bit because I've got enough size. So we'll just add to the front court one more time, and we'll take Taylor Hendricks as our backup center.
All right, so I got two picks to wrap this up. We're getting into the realm of guys who are just not sure what their role is going to be, if any, on the team. I'm going to take. Well, I'm considering Cooper, who I liked. I liked Cooper in summer league, and I do have a smaller team. But I've got Beef Stew, and I've got Quentin Post. I got Omax. I feel okay about that. I'm going to take a guy who, I think there's a chance he's at least in training camp for the Grizzlies, trying to earn a spot. I'm interested to take a look at him. He has not been good to this point in his career, at least offensively, but he's been pretty good defensively. I'm going to take Chris Murray, who came over from Portland, a 6'8" wing, some versatility. I'm going to take him as my nice spot. And then to finish out my 10-man group, I'm going to take the guy you've been talking about taking and you haven't taken him, because I don't care, it's my 10th man, whether he can play. I want him for the vibes, and the tater tots. I got Richie Saunders. Who's going to be better? We saw this guy, alongside two teenagers in the intro press conference, just being happy to be there and being a little goofy and being enthusiastic, and I charmed everyone. This is the guy I want waving the towel at the end of the bench on my team.
Listen, you may have a roster that's a little bit more thin than mine, but the tater tots might help beef them up a little bit.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Right. That was a good pick to finish. That means the players that were not selected, Carson Cooper, AJ Johnson.
You got the last pick.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, I guess I'll take Carson Cooper.
There we go.
Here's the thing. I have way too many bigs at this point. I went super big heavy, forced you to go guard heavy. So we're just going to play bigs versus smalls, I guess, in this scrimmage. I just don't think any of the other three guys are going to be on the roster. And so
That's right.
It's way more fun to take a guy like Carson Cooper. And, he's got quick feet for a big. He's got a lot of developing to do. But we can start him out in the G League and have him get some reps there and build up in case some of these guys. And look, Zach Edey has injury concerns, right? So I might need some bigs to fill some spot minutes. So we'll finish out with Carson Cooper. That means the players that were not selected were AJ Johnson, D'Angelo Russell, and Taj Gibson. Those are your three.
So real quick, go back over what your roster looks like.
I wish I was writing this down. I have Cam Boozer.
I got it if you don't.
Yeah, you go ahead. I was just highlighting.
So Team Drew is going to, I don't know, you have a decision to make, I guess, with lineups, but going by how you drafted them, it's going to feature a Cam Spencer at the point, a big front line of Zach Edey and Cam Boozer, and then a couple of combo forwards on the wing and Gigi Jackson and Jeremy Grant. Coming off the bench, you have some backcourt depth in Javon Small, Walter Clayton. You have Kareem Lopez, and then you have bigs and Taylor Hendricks and Carson Cooper. You got a big lineup there, unless you want to bring Javon Small into your starting lineup. And because you're so big, I'm on the small side. I have got Ty Jerome running the point. I got a two-guard backcourt with Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr. I got Beef Stew in the middle, and I got the workout mates, the locker room mates, Jalen Wells and Cedric Coward. I'm counting on Coward to rebound big for me on the wing. Smaller lineup. Coming off the bench, I do have Quentin Post if I want to go big. I've got Omax Prosper. I've got Jemai Mashak to defend. I got Chris Murray, the mystery man from Portland, and I've got the towel-waving Tater Tot King, Richie Saunders to round out my lineup. My main takeaway from here is just the illustration of how valuable Boozer potentially is, because as soon as you took Boozer, I had the question of trying to choose between playmaking and size, and Boozer gives you both.
Yep. No, that's right. I did a value ranking here in terms of the draft. This was my order. 1, Boozer, 2, Edey, 3, Coward, 4, Jerome, and then Grant, Jackson, Stewart, Spencer, Wells, Pippen, Small, Lopez, Saunders, Post. So I kind of tiered these off and then there was like guys that I think are bench players and fringe rotation players like Omax, Hendricks, Clayton, Mashak, right? So I feel like there's a clear 4, right, at the top.
There is a clear 4. That's why the 4th pick was the easiest pick. And maybe I should have taken Edey second or third, but I just, I just talked myself into the idea of I need an offensive hub, and I don't think Coward or Edey are ready to do that.
I really struggled organizing the next 6 beyond them, though. Yeah. Grant, Gigi Jackson, Isaiah Stewart, Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells, Scottie Pippen Jr. Would you think that's the next tier, or would you include Lopez, Saunders, Small, Post, any of the others?
I thought you were going to take either Jalen Wells, Gigi Jackson, or Cam Spencer with that 5th pick and leave me to have Jeremy Grant, sort of what I was counting on. But Grant's the guy,
I feel like he's reliable. Like, what he's going to give you, right?
We'll see. Average 18, 19 points a game, shot well from 3, a veteran, 12-year veteran, I think, but, certainly more than 10-year veteran. It's an interesting decision for the Grizzlies to make if everyone's healthy about who their 5th starter is. I think we assume Boozer, Coward, Edey, again, if healthy, if available, Boozer, Coward, Edey, Jerome are starters. It's an open question. Is it Jalen Wells? Is it Jeremy Grant? Is it Gigi Jackson? I don't know.
Let me narrow this down. I'm going to give you 5 names, and let me see if you have any strong feelings about. You don't have to rank them all 5 in order, but who you think should be at the top of the tier. So if we're gonna, let's just remove Jeremy Grant from the equation. We already talked about him. Gigi Jackson, Isaiah Stewart, Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells, Scottie Pippen Jr. Do any of those players stand out as more valuable to the team this year, but also going forward of that group? I'll read it one more time. Gigi Jackson, Isaiah Stewart, Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells, Scottie Pippen Jr.
I mean, I think the 2 guys, if you're talking about for this season, I think the 2 guys that stand out to me are Stewart and Wells. Stewart, because of Edey's injury concerns, I think, he's going to play a lot of minutes for this season. And Wells, maybe people think he shouldn't, but Wells has started 150 games or something the past 2 seasons. Like, he has been in that role. Yeah.
By the way, Jalen Wells and Cedric Coward as a 2-man lineup. I wrote a little bit because I talked to Jalen Wells on Friday on the radio and got his thoughts on Summer League, and he's got some camps upcoming. Jalen Wells and Cedric Coward played the 4th most minutes together of any 2-man Grizzlies lineup last season. I think they also had the 2nd best offensive rating of lineups that played in at least half the games. The combination of those 2. So they have worked well together in the past. That's worth circling, I think, when you think about how they're going to deploy lineups this coming season. And then I did exercises on like who plays what position, how frequently. And, it's just, to me, it was really difficult to try to sort that group out, because I still think if I asked you who has the potential to be the best player out of that group, your answer would probably be G.G. Jackson. And so it's hard to
yeah, that's the highest ceiling guy.
But he might be further back in terms of like usage in that group, of the five. And so that to me is where I sort of hit a speed bump in trying to order players.
I'm still a little stuck on, we'll see. But with Pippen, I'm really curious what Pippen's going to be coming, if he's healthy coming into the season. This is a guy who, prior to his little post-injury cameo last year, was a 40% three-point shooter through his first 3 seasons in the league, who has one of the highest steal rates in the league as an on-ball, aggressive on-ball defender, and has come up big in playoff games, which, basically no one else on this roster pretty much has done. Maybe nobody. I have to go back and look on some of these guys. Scottie Pippen was better in the playoffs 2 years ago than Ty Jerome was, that kind of thing. And so I'm really interested to see how much opportunity he's going to get, and B, what he looks like next season.
It's pretty difficult to sort out what guards they're actually going to use and how they're going to use them. Wells actually played more small forward, according to Cleaning the Glass. Wells played more small forward last year than he did shooting guard, but last year was such a different year.
I don't trust the positional designations. I use that site, and I love that site, but I don't always trust their positional designations. I think it's too often tied to height. Mm-hmm. So I suspect that they're calling Wells the 3 and Coward the 2 in those lineups. And to me, functionally, I think Coward has been more the 3 when they play together.
So, figuring out who they're going to use at the 1 and the 2 and how many of them in what way is a really interesting question for us to potentially dive more into as this offseason goes along. You have any thoughts on the bottom half? I mean, we just addressed the top half. So the bottom half of the draft was players like Javon Small, Kareem Lopez, Richie Saunders, Post. I mean, I guess how did you assess where you think the rookies should go, Lopez and Saunders, in that mix? Because, they're going up against players that have actually played in the NBA, like a Quentin Post, and have, in some cases he's played well in certain lineups for the Warriors, whereas like Lopez really didn't show us anything in Summer League because he was injured, and Saunders hasn't played a minute in the NBA. How did you assess where they belong while you tried to figure out who should go where?
Lopez is almost a total mystery to me. When I tried to scout him in our pre-draft process, I couldn't, to the degree that I could scout him at all, I couldn't get much of a feel for him. Obviously, he didn't play but 11 minutes in Summer League. He's only 19 years old, been playing overseas. I have no expectations for him. It wouldn't surprise me if he's the 15th man on the roster, doesn't play that much. Or maybe he's better than expected, earlier than expected, and he plays a lot too. I really got no idea on him.
So who do you think has a better season, Lopez or Omax?
I think Omax does. I think Omax is clearly ready to play right now. I think he looked pretty good. A little too aggressive offensively, but pretty good back at his natural position at small forward in Summer League. And I think he will be ahead of Lopez in the pecking order to start the season. Yeah, that would be my guess.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know what these guys are going to show in training camp and in the preseason, and what sort of opportunity lies ahead. Okay, well, I think that does it for our draft this week. There is more to life than basketball. Chris, anything going on in your life?
I've been seeing tons of movies, both new and old. We talked about The Odyssey last week, but I saw The Invite a couple of days ago. My wife and I went to see that. It is still showing in theaters, still in theaters in Memphis. Even next week, it's still at the Ridgeway 4. It is a very adult comedy, but very, very funny. I highly recommend it if you are an adult who wants an adult comedy. Maybe I think a good movie to go to with your significant other if you feel strong about your relationship. If things are a little shaky, maybe not so much.
Okay.
Tread carefully on that one, but I thought it was great.
What a glowing review of that movie. we don't have a ton going on. We are at the age where my daughter just kind of laughs at everything. I was actually talking to Natalie about this before we started the podcast up, which is that something people don't tell you when you become a parent is that your kid's just going to find the most basic and or random things you might just be doing around the house as funny. In this case, it is it's fly season, so we've had a couple flies get into the house. And she thinks the fly swatter is the funniest thing. Like, she literally will stop breathing. She's laughing so hard at the fly swatter. So that's been really fun entertainment.
I think if you really want to entertain her, you need to step up your game and go Mr. Miyagi style and get some chopsticks and just catch those flies with the chopsticks.
Maybe.
That's what you need to do.
I don't know if it's like a concerning thing that my child finds killing insects to be so entertaining, but
right.
Yeah, she does. That's what's new. We're getting out of town this weekend on a little family trip, so it'll be good to get her out and about, which reminds me that we should tell you guys we are going to be off next week. There will be no pod next week because I think we have a couple vacations going on. I'll be back early next week. We'll have some Grizzly stuff, but our producer Natalie is off. So we're going to take a week break, and then we're going to come back the following week. We'll talk more about Grizzlies off-season stuff. We'll see if there's any type of roster movement. I don't think there's any immediate rush on that. So we'll see if some things get cleared up by then. If not, we'll come back with another idea, maybe another draft. Chris loves drafts. You know?
I love drafts.
He loves drafts. He's the draft guy. All right, that will do it for us this week. For Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.